Welcome to another episode of Living Lifted with Brenton Ross. I have a special guest today, Jeff Yauck. Did I say it right?
Yauck. Close.
Yauck.
Close.
Yauck. I was wondering that, and I was going to ask you on air so that way everybody else knows how to say it too. Jeff is a father. He's an entrepreneur. I would consider you an auto enthusiast.
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
What would you say your favorite whip that you had is? Was that McLaren?
Oh, for sure. McLaren.
Didn't you build that out too? Didn't you do some stuff
Yeah,
to it?
but I did it. I had the car for 2 years, and I did it after the first year. I wish I would have done it right away, but I had the tune. I had
And it was the 720.
720.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. The tune, the exhaust, the titanium exhaust, the downpipes, the inlets, everything.
I remember I saw you one time on Pinnacle, and I heard you, and that thing was
it was obnoxious.
That thing was wild. What'd you put tires wise on the back of that thing to even get traction? Because the 720S already spins out pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I never had issues with it spinning out.
It would grab. Huh?
No, it doesn't grab it but it never loses it, you know. So I never had issues with that, but it had Brixton.
This is rear wheel drive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So yeah, it would be hard to pick up traction right away, but yeah, once you pick up. But I never felt like I was going to lose it, though. That's the weird thing about it. It controlled it pretty good. So
my Z06 that was all rear-wheel drive like that, it didn't matter if I was doing 75 already and I hit that, and it would still get sideways.
Really?
Freeway 75.
That's crazy.
What I want to talk about today, just like the overall focus, we're going to talk a lot about Jeff and everything that he does and is working on and his story and tips of wisdom to extract from him. But the overall theme is resiliency. I believe you're a man of resiliency from the time I've been around you, the conversations we've been blessed to have together. And so most of the time I usually just pull one definition of resiliency, but I actually pulled the Oxford definition and the Webster definition. And the reason why I'm pulling them both is you'll see they kind of differentiate a little bit, but they really exemplify everything we're going to be talking about today. So the first one, the Oxford one, says the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. So this is all in relevancy to being an entrepreneur because it's very important to be resilient. And the other part that Oxford gives is the ability of a substance or an object to spring back into shape, elasticity. So I kind of look at the elasticity part as almost like the ability to make a strategic pivot on what you're doing. And then Webster's definition is the capability of a strained body to recover its size and shape after deformation caused especially by compressive stress.
Ooh.
You think that's relative? No kidding. And then the last part of it is an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change.
Happens to everybody, right?
Yeah. So
you almost need that as an entrepreneur, you know?
Exactly. What made you want to be an entrepreneur? Was it your child? What made you want to pursue the entrepreneurial life?
No, I didn't have anybody in my family that was really doing anything like that. They're all just working. I don't know where I got the idea of that because my family didn't ever have that, you know? So I think it came from me seeing nice things, and I would always go into someone's house that had a nice house and just be like, wow, this is amazing. I would love to be here. Okay. I think that's kind of where it came from.
So in your mind, you felt like in order to have that, the path to that was being.
Yeah, exactly. I thought about different career paths, think about the max that I could make at that career path. And I'd be like, it doesn't feel like it's the right thing for me. I was going to be a firefighter at first and then, patent lawyer. And even that I didn't think had so then I don't know. I just always thought that I was going to start a company at one point. It's just really weird.
Is it safe to say then that if that's the filter you're running it through in that scenario, you're looking at that nice house and you're saying, okay, I think the vertice to this is to be an entrepreneur. I don't think I could have this at a 9 to 5. And there are definitely certain careers, 9 to 5s that definitely can provide that type of lifestyle, but it is a little bit more rare. And that also is very much so oversimplifying the ability to be successful as an entrepreneur because the majority of people do not make it. Is it safe to say or fair to say, I guess, that your motive at that time was you wanted a certain lifestyle?
Yeah, exactly.
You wanted your own freedom. You wanted to dictate your own schedule and you wanted nice things. So that was your motive at that point. Okay.
I always had a lot of ideas in my head too. So that's kind of where the starting my own company came from is just, I had ideas from a young age.
So I think what also makes an entrepreneurial effort have a higher chance of success, there's either a team of people behind that. There's some people that are visionaries and idealists, and then there's implementers.
Totally.
The solo guy that's doing it on his own has got to be able to do both. And I think that you're good at doing both.
Yeah, for sure. I I'm definitely more the visionary, but I have brought in people that actually get me to do the things that, or do the things that I'm not very good at. But in the beginning, I do have to do both, so, but definitely more the visionary, I would say.
So if your motive was to have the nice things, to be your own boss, did you also at the same time yet understand what you were signing up for?
Not really. You kind of, you have no clue. You don't know what you don't know, so you jump into it and you just learn as you go, and you get thrown into one thing and you got to make a decision, pivot, and it's just a constant, like, every day. Yeah. But you have no clue what you're in for at all.
Right.
You think it's going to be way smoother than it is. You always think, if I solve this problem, it's going to be smooth sailing from here. This is what I need to fix. And it's like never like that. It's always going to be an issue, so, and you can never even envision that before you start it.
Yes.
So.
I think that, and you used to hear this a lot, whether it was on different podcasts or whatever, that they're discussing the entrepreneurial topic. A lot of people always talk about the average Joe or the average person that's never been an entrepreneur. They don't really understand what it's truly like of what you go through. I do feel today, because there are so many different media channels and sources where people talking about it, that people are finally starting to kind of get over that misconception that it's just like you're your own boss and everything's great and you get to make all this money and dictate your own terms. There's enough people being transparent about the journey and I think that's a really good thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Because like when I ask you, did you know what to expect? No, I think people, because of like the conversation we're going to have today, at least are starting to be able to manage their expectations a little bit of what that's going to look like if they decide to go down that
They'll know it'll be hard by what they hear, but it's still going to throw them through the loop. They're not going to know what's actually going to come. So
you would hear it a lot before, like when someone would say I'm my own boss or I have my own business, and people would be like, oh, that must be nice.
Yeah, totally.
Because they just thought like that it's just this easy.
And in a way it's nice, but it's not an easy route, that's for sure. It is nice. Like I would not want to do anything else, I guess, but it's not like it's been a walk in the park, that's for sure. So too, right?
That's for sure.
Well, we talk about it a lot. So
I think that in congruency with resiliency, a part of that definition being you develop that resiliency by paying your dues of going through those ups and downs, the hard things. You hear a lot of illustrations or examples of entrepreneurship, like the roller coaster of the company or of your business, that whether, you have ups and downs, which is most of the time the case. And then a lot of times there's even a lot of like, you start to feel like you finally hit that uptick, but then it's a false one. Totally. It drops. And then you kind of still, and then you hit another one until finally you're able to maintain that growth and maintain that vertice.
You make mistakes too once you do make the money, make bad mistakes that make you lose it and stuff like that. So
now where I want to focus on with that is no matter how talented you are, most of the time due to economic fluctuations or different things that are uncontrollable variables, there is going to be the up and down, especially in the beginning. What you don't have to do, which I'll own and be vulnerable about, that I made the mistake of doing for a long time, especially early on, was as the company did this, my emotions did this with it.
It's hard not to though, Same with me, I admit too, it kind of dictated my life a little bit, which you can't separate the two because it comes into your real life too. So I've been there too. It's kind of how it is. If you can work to like make it less, that's a big plus for you for sure.
What does that?
That's what I'm working.
What does that look like to do it less? What does that look like to you?
I don't know. Like for instance, in the beginning, I would always be working every day and not take off on the weekends and stuff. And I started like really stressing me out. So I basically like cut myself off where I would take off on the weekends and basically I would work 5 days a week. And then the weekends, obviously things come up where you just are forced to do it. But I would really try to separate that stuff and take that for, myself and whoever, my family and whatnot. So that was important for me. I know some people like just say grind, dude, that was working for a little bit, but it wasn't, for me, it wasn't sustainable. I think there's people that might be able to tolerate that better, but for me, no.
And the quality of your work too, as you get close to burnout, it really starts to depreciate.
Totally, yeah. You get drained, you just want to like lay in bed because you're just exhausted, So
yes, especially then when you add in the mental fatigue that comes with the up and downs, the doubts, the insecurities, the fears, everything that comes along with that. Because
you also have stress from everyday life outside of business too to add to it, So.
Exactly, and we're going to get to that because you're also a father. But I was standing in the hangar the other day with Mitch, and he had just gotten back from a very grueling grueling business job with his helicopter where he was doing some surveying, and he had to like basically maintain the same altitude, the same speed, the same pace, same everything for like hours at a time. Yeah. And he loves it because that's where he really gets to deploy his skill, and it makes him tick. Like he just steps up and he likes stuff that's hard.
He likes it,
but he doesn't have to do that stuff very often.
Yeah, okay.
So when he does, I think if he had to do it every day, it'd probably get pretty tiring for him. Sure. But because he doesn't have to do it so often, when he does do things like that, he actually does genuinely enjoy it. And I looked at him and I said, and I need to take this advice from myself too. I said, we would never take that helicopter and run it to fumes to where it falls out of the sky. So why do we do that to ourselves? Totally. It's like, I'm not going to stop until I fall out of the sky. And most of the time when that happens, like that falls out of the sky, it's game over.
No, it's over.
You're done. Sure. So with us, when that gets to that point, that can even start attributing to some of the up and downs of the roller coaster is because of our inability to be consistent in how we regulate our exertion points.
That's important. Exactly.
Yes. I want to talk about like what you just brought up, and I'm glad you brought it up, is the outside life of just the business itself. And where I first want to go with that is the insecurities and fears that are associated with it. And so, you've been very successful with different brands that you've launched and scaled over a decade now.
So close, yeah.
I don't want someone to just sit there and listen and watch this and just be like, okay, this guy has talents and abilities that I don't have. If you've had, a lot of people want to chalk it up to luck. This guy has relationship and resources that I don't have. And that's why he's been able to achieve what he's been able to achieve. What I want to focus on, if you're willing to, is I just want to talk a little bit more about like, and I'll be vulnerable myself, fears and insecurities that we've had to face and overcome during this process. Because if the people that I'm referring to that are listening or watching this, that's usually what's stopping them from taking that path that they feel they're, called or built to take, but their fears and insecurities are what's stopping them. Jordan Peterson has this quote, and it says, if you didn't withdraw in fear from anything that crosses your path in life, what kind of person could you become, and what kind of life would that lead to? Yeah, dude. That hits home for me, man.
You got to put yourself in those situations to overcome them,
Yes. There's two sides to that. The first, which is a good thing, is that it's not too late. But I also need to have the ability and self-awareness and honesty with myself to look back over the choices I made, whether it was in school, career path, relationships, social environments, things I avoided because of fear, because of insecurities. I heard something the other day that I really, really liked, and I think it was Hermosi who said it, I think. But he was talking about how people say they're afraid of failure, and that's why they don't want to do anything. But the next layer of that, which most people have uncovered and talk about, is it's what other people are going to think of your failure. But then where he took it was another step that I really liked, was because of social media today, because of how everybody can kind of keep score of each other based on lifestyle, based on clout, those kinds of things. He's like, what people are really afraid of is to jeopardize or lose their current status.
Yeah, no, for sure.
They might not be where they want to be, but they're not willing to roll the dice or run the risk that at least they feel kind of accepted in the way they're viewed in their social circles. But if they try something and fail, they could then have their status demoted, and now they're viewed differently. And that's where a lot of that fear comes from. And that's so true.
Oh, so true. Yeah, for sure.
Because, and he says this too, it's not really necessary the fear of failure. Like if no one knew about you failing, other than just like the disappointment in yourself, you're going to get over that. You're going to learn, you're going to take the lessons that came from you falling short and applying and trying something different as an entrepreneur will do to now learn how to succeed and then build off that. But the main fear is that other people will know about it.
Oh, totally.
So how do you overcome that?
Honestly, I used to be really bad at worrying what people think about me. In the beginning, it's not like, I'm trying to think actually.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
And I never give anybody questions before this to look over because I want to be able to extract a genuine answer from you. And that's a difficult one, but that's why I want somebody that's watching this is where they relate with us.
Yeah.
I want people to know everyone struggles. everyone has pain, everyone has insecurities, everyone has mental blocks that they have to learn how to overcome. And it's not going to be the same path for everyone on how to even change or face those things. There are some congruencies. And that's why I love to bring this stuff out, is because I want them to be able to connect with that, hear how we overcome it, or are still, I'm in the process of working on a lot of things I still need to change, overcome, and progress in. But what that looks like so they can do it.
I'm trying to think of how it was when I first started, because this is like a long time ago. So I'm trying to think of.
So you feel like you are at the point now where you're kind of free from that.
Yeah, I'm free from that for sure. I also don't have a bunch of stuff on social media that people see, and I have like a little confidence from what I've built before that I feel like not as worried to go into things, but and I did lose my status. Like I'm nowhere where I used to be, and it is a hard pill to swallow, but
what that feels like.
That makes me want to get to the next level and then learn what I did from the situations that happened to me and just not let that happen next time. And then hopefully
So in that, when what you just said, when you first started, the first time you saw that nice house and thought, I have to go do something on my own to have this. And that was your motive. Came out of how has that changed? How is what's happened over the last decade?
Now I don't really care about that stuff as much, even though it's still nice. Like I still want to have a nice house, but it's not about like flaunting stuff. It's more about the security, like being able to give my daughter a good life. And I honestly think like I would like to make a good amount and get away and kind of like live a more of a simple life. That's the kind of goal now. But
you're not trying to prove anything to anyone.
Not at all anymore. Yeah. I think that's why my daughter really helped me with that.
Absolutely.
It made me feel like somebody else matters more than me.
Hey.
So that helped a lot with that. It's funny how that she changed me just in the last like 2 years.
Me too.
I just want to not make mistakes and keep it next time, next time I have the big success.
Sure.
And then, make her have a comfortable life.
Isn't it crazy how much that little girl will show you how selfish you still are?
It's crazy.
With your time, with your thought process.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll be hanging out with her and I'll find myself she's just trying to get attention from me. I'll be on my phone, like doing stupid scrolling or something. And then she's like looking at me and I'm just allowing that. But then when I do spend the one-on-one time, it's just so much more.
That intentional
feels
time.
So much better.
Where you're locked in and she knows she has your attention.
Exactly. So
they're smart.
I try to work.
They know when you're distracted and you're like kind of halfway answering.
It's crazy how much
the question they've asked you 19 times in a row.
I'll be on my phone and she'll literally start yelling at me. Like, I'm like, what? Okay, I guess, I'm on my phone. Just put that away, and one-on-one engagement is what really does it. So.
Yes. Yeah. I think that for me, it was really in like from the age, I would say like 1.5 to 2, where her awareness was growing. And so I couldn't get away with it anymore. And when she would look at me and I could tell that it bothered her.
Exactly.
And that she wasn't getting from me what she desired. And obviously you need to have healthy boundaries, and it's like, she's not going to get that all the time. There's things you have to do, and she's 2 and doesn't understand when that timing is appropriate or not, which is why she asks the same question 19 times in a row. But you also know the difference if you're giving intentional time to them or not.
Yep, exactly.
And I had to really be honest with myself and say, if I'm sitting on the couch watching some stinking YouTube channel that she wants to watch for the 9 millionth time, there's a difference between me zoning out and just doing my thing, or really having that intentional time with her. And it's extremely important to me, and it's even more important to them, and it matters more to them than we even realize.
I agree with that.
I think they'll be definitely vocal about that as time goes on, but even at this age, they're very perceptive.
In the beginning, when you started yours, like your first company, how did you go about like getting over the fear of when you first started your first company? Actually, so I'm thinking mine came out of desperation. Like I moved to LA and I thought I was going to start a company. I didn't start a company. I was bartending, and I was like, just like felt like a failure that I moved out there and didn't do anything. And I think, because I was thinking about it more as we were just talking here, and I think, when I started the first company, which was Oats Overnight, I was, like, oh my God, that's it. Like before I go back to Wisconsin, I failed. Like I'm going to just do one last dish effort and go to the beach and create these oats and sell them on the beach by myself. And that's like, it was kind of out of desperation where I felt like a failure. And then
I didn't even know that. So you actually did physically go to the beach and sell them yourself.
So that was the original plan. Like I started doing that. And then instead of actually doing that though, I was telling my roommate, who was a professional poker player, and my other best friend who's a professional poker player, I told them I'm going to do this. And then they heard the idea and saw what I was doing, and they're like, wait, maybe I want to invest, So that's how I actually got them to even have the conversation to start it. But it came out of desperation. It's like, I almost wasn't like thinking what other people were saying. I was feeling ashamed of myself. And then I actually went for it, and then they probably saw that I was passionate, and then, it turned into them actually, or one of them investing. And that was my partner.
Yeah. So. Seeing something in ourselves being honest enough with ourselves to know it needs to change can be a very powerful motivator.
Yeah.
It also can drive to shame, which can keep you stuck.
Totally. You're right about that.
So it's kind of a delicate dance. But if you're the type of person that's wired that when you see something that you don't like about yourself and you want it to be different, there's a lot of motivation in that. Totally. Now, I think there's a layer to that needs to get deeper, because that motivation of that will definitely fluctuate based on the day, based on the external factors in your life. So there needs to be a deeper reason why you want to change, want to be better. And so to answer your question for myself, that is exactly pertains to me, what I was just saying. Because as a child, anytime I went to my father and said, hey, I think I want to do this, he would say, well, why don't you want to own it? I know my dad loved me very much and he wanted me to do great things, but by the way he would always phrase that to me, what I heard was, it's not good enough to just go do this. I have to own it. Yeah. I have to be the guy that owns the whole thing. That's the big guy.
Some pressure.
And I definitely had that chip on my shoulder, or at least that mindset, when I started my career path. I was working at a financial firm, and my whole goal at that time was just all monetary based. I had a whiteboard next to my bed with financial metrics on it, that if I didn't have this much money in my account by this age and this time, that I'm failing. And it was honestly sick. Like, I know some people that don't look at life the way I look at it now, or like myself at that time period, thought that, like, that's really smart. You know, there's like, I think it was Hermosi, I'm gonna refer to him again. He teaches people to look at their bank account first thing when they wake up every morning, because it makes them pay attention to it more, makes them think about it more, and they're more prone to build it. And there is maybe something to that, but I don't want to make my entire life anymore based around just trying to build my bank account. Totally. I think that's relative to each person and what phase you're in of life and where you're at. But for me, my drive came from anger. My drive came from insecurities. My drive came from not even just wanting to prove myself to other people. I wanted to prove myself to myself. Totally. I definitely wanted all the nice things, or things that I was used to. I wanted to be associated with that. I didn't want anyone to ever be able to discredit or look down on me. So I felt like if I was more successful than them, or better looking, or more in shape, or whatever, I would be able to kind of protect and carve out a spot for myself in every environment and every room that I was in, that I would be respected. Like, you can't discredit me. You can't write me off if I'm better than you in some way. So I had a lot of powerful motivators, but some of them were very toxic. And so it's just like what you said a little bit ago, your drive now has changed substantially from what it was then. And that's the exact same for me. Yeah. So I'm very thankful for that. And I have to be honest, and I think you would agree with this, that the down parts of the last decade have been the main reason that I have changed. Totally. Yeah. If it would have been like this the whole time, I would have never had a reason to change. I never would have been checked. I never would have, and I wouldn't have empathy like I do now for other people going through difficult things. I was very much so from that performance standpoint that you're just failing. Like, you need to toughen up. You need to sack up. You need to go figure it out, and you need to just make it happen. Yeah. And it's your fault if you don't. Well, some of that is true, but you're also throwing out all the other external factors of what their mental health looks like, what their childhood was like, what's going on in their life right now, someone dying, an illness, child that's sick, a relationship, even things that happen in the markets and the economy that can drastically change all of a sudden. In your business that's thriving, you're still doing all the right things, or even better things than you used to do before, with more effort and more strategy. But because the environment itself just drastically changed,
less money out there,
you're in trouble.
Yeah. That's what everybody's feeling right now. The economy, people don't have disposable. If you have a product that doesn't, fit somebody's like exact need, and it's an extra thing, they're not gonna spend on it.
I completely agree with that. I think right now, anything that's nice to have instead of need to have, that is what's really
it, big time.
Yes.
Sure. It's across the board.
Yes.
Everybody talks about it.
Yes. Yes. Now, what would you say for yourself, not to teach anybody else yet, we'll get to that, but for yourself, what do you say the 3 biggest lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur are? And I'm putting you on the spot again.
Yeah, no, that's good. Probably the number one is probably don't just trust everybody. The trust thing is what burned me so many times. It's, I like to think that the best out of people, and you find out real quick when money's involved, it's like not like that. People will like screw you over, will do whatever for themselves over you.
So what would you do now though to determine if you can trust someone? Because I think that's going to be a lot of people's question is like, well, but how
I would just trust way less in general. Like I would be super
putting like checks and balances in places.
More time. I would like, one of the things like talk to them about their spirituality maybe. And I would just be like, I would just not invest with as many people and give as many people money and go into partnerships with as many people. Just from that in general. And I don't know exactly how I would determine how, but I think that what I said.
I actually like that you just said that, because I think that's something that whether someone grew up in church or at least has been around enough, you hear a lot about that, about a marriage, that there's a term equally yoked, meaning that both people have the same common foundation in faith for a successful marriage.
Yep. God fearing, I guess, would, then they're not thinking that they can just screw somebody.
But it applies to a business, because loyalty to someone else, no matter how much you like them, still can fall short.
Totally.
But if you're in business or in a relationship, a partnership with someone, and your loyalty is to the truth, to God, to your religion, there's a deep enough anchor there that's deeper than just loyalty to another person.
Yep.
And so what's really cool about that is if you're loyal to the truth and I'm loyal to the truth, then we're both going to be standing right next to each other, looking at each other right next to each other. We're going to end up being loyal to each other by default. But when we have differences of opinions, or something comes up in a business where it really trust is a big, big deal, now we have something that is a foundation to build upon and is an anchor that we can look to, instead of just who can argue the loudest or yell the loudest or whatever, flex based on ownership, or every situation's different. But that having that common ground to build as a foundation on as a business or a relationship, to me is so vital that I don't really want to do many things anymore in life without it.
No, you're right.
Because I've done it the other way so many times.
And I think the other lesson, I would say the biggest one, is to not take on more than like a couple of things. Like I think I started getting comfortable making money, and then I added too many other businesses or things to my plate that it made me less efficient with the first business, and then it's kind of it suffered. And then
because when you start to see success, you start having a lot more things thrown at you as far as opportunities and attention.
It distracted me, and it gave me more anxiety, because I'm like overly even more stressed when it's already stressful to have one company in general.
Yeah, so that's for sure.
That would probably be the second one, and the third one, I've got to think about it for a second.
Okay, maybe it'll come to you while we're going on to the next one, and everything that we're talking about is probably going to pop in your head because it's all relative to this. So let's talk about being a father now. Being a father and an entrepreneur at the same time. How has it affected your priorities and mentality? Let's start with priorities, and then we'll go to mentality.
My name is Jacob McLaughlin, and I'm the founder of New to Medical Device Sales. Medical device sales is the selling of medical equipment to hospitals, surgeons. They're actually in the surgeries, and the average rep's going to make around $177,000. And what we've been able to do is help people break in about 8 weeks at around $100,000 starting out in the industry. It usually is 5 to 7 interviews, 6 to 12 weeks long in the interview process, and they go up against thousands of people. But that's because you are going to be working with some of the smartest human beings, such as surgeons. You're going to make over 6 figures. You get your car paid for, all your gas paid for, and all your travel paid for. We've been able to help over 2,000 people do this in the last 2 years. Not only do we help people break in to make a difference and change other people's lives, they also get to change their lives. If you're interested in helping people and you're interested in financially becoming free, we can definitely help you. And I think you should check out New to Medical Device Sales, our podcast, while you can also click the link where you guys can learn more about what we do at New to Medical Device Sales. I absolutely love Brenton. I thank him so much for what he's doing for all of you. And I hope you guys keep enjoying the episode.
It's definitely a change for me. It's hard. I've been I've been through a real down point in my business and stuff. So I've been kind of free from like the major hustle, which I was with Pure Kana for a while, it's because of the lawsuits and stuff I'm dealing with. So I've had more time to actually be present with her, and it's made it a little difficult for me to figure out how to like get back into the hustle, because I have, so much time with her, and it's still very new to me. So, I'm still trying to figure it out.
For me, and I think this is going to be common for a lot of people, which is why I want to say it, I do feel like I'm failing all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't get enough done here at work.
Totally.
I have to leave before things are done, so that way I can be home before bedtime. I can at least stand in the kitchen and somewhat eat a meal at the same time as my wife and daughters. And then that's weird to say now, daughters, plural.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And then to do at bedtime with her, like, means everything to my little girl. We lay on her floor in her bedroom. We got these little starlights that are on, and I read to her. And most of the time it's just me making up stories as she looks at the pictures and stuff like that. And she loves it.
So cute.
But so often I feel like I can't spend enough time there. So I'm falling short. And then I feel like I'm falling short here, especially like if things are going really well from a business standpoint, it does compensate for that to an extent, because if things are going really well and money's good and you have traction, it compensates for the fact that you're not getting enough done because it's still working.
Exactly. Yeah. You're still doing money. You're not frantic, like trying to figure out what's going on, how to get it back to how it used to be and stuff.
Yes.
I feel you there.
Yes. Sure. And you just nailed it. So when it is going the other way, when money's not good and you're not seeing traction, and that amplification of feeling like the business is falling short, plus you're not able to do everything you feel you need to do to try to turn that around or change things, that's a hell of a combo.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And so that's where then it leads into the next part of my question, is the mentality of it. I've had to really, the priorities are there, but in order to actually prioritize the people and things you want, you have to change your mentality in order to actually follow through in doing that. And so now I've had to change my mentality of, okay, control is an illusion. I cannot, even if I slept on this couch and never left here, I still can't 100% control the outcome of everything that I do, whether it's a business or a relationship. Now, I have responsibilities in that.
Yeah.
That would be foolish to neglect that. But the illusion of control is just that. You think that by having more money, you put in more time, more work, a tighter grip on the situation, that things are going to be okay. And that's where my mentality has had to change, that I need to be able to prioritize my relationship with God and with my family and who he's called me to be as a father and a husband. And I need to still give my all, but I need to now start to learn how to relinquish the outcome. And that might sound really foolish and stupid to a lot of people listening and watching this that are business minded or financial minded or entrepreneur minded or atheist. Like, what do you mean? You're just going to neglect the things that you should be doing and just hope that it works out? Yeah. It kind of does sound like that, but no, that's not the case. I'm still going to work just as hard, but my motive, my mentality is different behind the hard work. I know the difference. You know the difference. We all know the difference of when we are doing the hard work and when we're not. You feel it. At least I do. If I'm sitting on the couch and I haven't done it and I'm procrastinating,
you feel like crap. You
feel completely different than if you busted your ass all day and then you're sitting in that same seat and maybe things haven't even progressed, but you put your time in, you put your work in.
Hopping on a couple calls even just gives you that.
Yes.
It makes you feel so much better.
You know the difference. And
do you have like a set time where you come here certain times always and you go home at a certain time always, and it's like a set thing?
I wish.
Kind of just winging. Yeah.
I wish. I can't. I get here almost at the same time every day. I usually get here about 8. I actually was trying to just sit with my wife last week and was like, it's going to be impossible right now in the newborn, but how can we figure out that I can even get there a little earlier? But honestly, right now with the stage that my little girl's in, I don't think it's going to be possible, and I'm not willing to forfeit that. When I leave, that fluctuates a lot. I never get to leave when everything's done, but I try to make sure I'm like I said, I'm at least home before bedtime. Sometimes it's at the tail end of dinner. Sometimes I can make it for dinner because they're not at the age yet where we can all sit around a table and have, when my girls get to that age, that's going to be a top priority.
For sure.
We're going to sit around a dinner table and have dinner together. And I know that means a lot to my wife too. So I'm going to prioritize that. But right now it's just really based on, I call it triaging my workflow. I just knock out the things on my list that have to get done. And then if there's certain things I have to have a stopping point and push it to tomorrow, that's where then my ability to then relinquish the outcome, that trust in God's plan, is where that really plays a big part. Because if my drive is determined, my motivation is directly correlated to an outcome, well, that anxiety kicks in that your hard work, time and effort, money isn't going to produce the desired outcome. And so therefore you start to feel anxious. What do I need to do differently? I messed up. You start going through all those motions, which I've done time and time again. And I want it out of that jail cell. It's a mental jail cell being that way, even physical, because it affects your body. That stress, that anxiety affects everything. It affects your relationships because you act different, your mind, you're not present.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I've got to figure out how to change my mentality and how I approach all this. So now what I'm learning is that if I can relinquish my attachment to an outcome and make my motivation to be a steward of what God has put me in charge of, to use the gifts that he's given me in the arenas I feel like he's placed me in, but to not hold everything anymore with a tight grip. It actually takes more effort to have your hand like this. If you hold out your arms like this out in front of you for an extended period of time, you're going to do it for a far less amount of time than you can do it like this.
Really? I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I mean, substantially different. It's so much harder to have your hands like this and grab onto something than it is to open them and relinquish control. And so this is how I'm trying to frame my mentality of everything that I do in my business and even in my relationships.
I need to work on that myself for sure.
We all do. Yeah. I think we're never going to master it. Yeah. We can get better at it, but it's going to look different in every season of life. Like right now with our little girls, because they're the same age, they're 2 years old. Patience, that's them not falling off something. But now let's go 14 years down the road and they're 16, they're driving for the first time. Letting go of that's going to look completely different. Totally. So every season is going to be something, and who even knows what our business is or our life, career life looks like at that point.
Yeah. Right now we just I had issues with the mom. So I have a nanny in there, and it's really weird getting used to a nanny and then working in the same place with the nannies taking care of the baby and stuff. So I'm still getting used to the dad life with the nanny instead of the mom in the house. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
That's a different balance for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Where do you, I think you have a very analytical, and you have a street smart mindset where you can identify opportunity well. Where do you see opportunity in the market right now? So
when I search for a business to go into, I think of something that's got scalability, and with the first business I had, it was a product that didn't exist and it's new. And I like products like that where it's less competition that you're marketing against. Sure. I got really, in a way, lucky with Pure Kana because it's the most competitive space ever and you can't do traditional marketing. So I found really good affiliate partners and, SEO partners and stuff that really be able to send the traffic. But I like industries where there's not a lot of competition yet. Like for Oats was the first of its kind, and it made it so much easier to market the brand, And
sure.
I like products also that, people need every month. If it's food, people eat this for breakfast every day. Or if it's a CBD, they take it every day and they have to reorder it every month. So I like products that are like that. And as far as right now, like an industry, I don't know exactly. I think because I'm working on my current things and that's what I'm in. So I haven't really looked at new opportunity markets right now. Yeah. I'm just all in on these things. No, I think what you just nailed is actually where I was hoping you go with it. I feel like when I said earlier, things right now that are nice to have instead of need to have are what are really struggling. Yep. So what you're saying is directly congruent with that. You're saying if you're coming up with your idea, your business plan, first identify a service or a product that's utilitarian. It solves a problem. It's needed. It's not nice to have. It's needed. And then what you also took as another step is that it's not just a one-time use. If it's ultra high ticket, sometimes that can work. But if it's a mid-price or low-price product, a one-time use on something like that, it's really hard to build a big business. And it's not even necessarily that you have to build a giant business. Not everybody wants to build $100 million, $1 billion business. Exactly. They just want to make enough money to live on and be their own boss. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but that still comes into play. And so I like that duo that you just identified. Supplement that people really need, I guess, is good, but definitely. It's so saturated though. Exactly. I knew that when I got into it, but I think that even fed into a little bit of my ability to do the normal marketing with it like you did with the Facebook ads and stuff. So you have to get creative, and it's really a completely different playing field than a normal brand where you can just market it on Facebook and Instagram. But even if you can now, which you can, still tons of competition. The money behind the other people that are in the same space. That's what you were talking about. You can't bid against them. It's too expensive to acquire a customer. No shot. So what it's really turned in today is the barrier to entry to starting your own company today also is easier than it was before. Easier, for sure. So that paired with the trend caused by social or just, social comparisons of people wanting to have their own business, that combination has created a high saturation point of people owning their own business, white labeling products. So the saturation rate's gone up,
And then the big conglomerates that are there, they have their places kind of solidified because they have the ability from a money standpoint, from marketing or influencers or however they are going about, a combination of all of it, most likely. So today, I feel like what it really comes down to when you're a small business, a big part of your ability to even not only scale, but actually have longevity, being able to weather the storms, whether they're economic or personal life, is being lean and mean, but the way you can connect with your audience.
Totally. Right.
That you actually care.
And social proof too, you know, like you see
Yes.
people using it and stuff though.
Yeah. And today, because of the ability for a consumer, give a review or even just be outspoken with their story or their friends, companies that are doing shady things, selling subpar products, they get exposed pretty quickly today. And even some of the big brands of that, it's happened. And when that gets out, especially like Taylor will tell me, my wife will tell me different stories about like products that are really popular in the mom community or for children and things. And then something will get exposed that it was actually dangerous or something. And then boom.
Did you see Brian Johnson talk, you know, the guy with the blueprint or whatever, a longevity guy?
Is that on Netflix, the Blue Zone thing?
No, it's a supplement guy who's he spends $2 million a year to look younger. Do you know this guy?
No.
This guy? Yeah, so he just called out like another company, like the AG1 company for
the greens.
And that's what he puts ads out, like basically talking negative about them. And it's crazy to see because he's talking about like how they, you know, just a crap product that they're marketing and selling to you. And
he puts money behind actual ads and they let him do that.
And he spends a ton of money actually doing the research to actually he's got a supplement stack that's supposed to be like the best for longevity, and it's based on science and stuff. So he's got this reason for it, but it was just crazy to see him actually just go after them and like call them out like unpaid media too. It's crazy to see.
I wonder where the line for a defamation suit
I don't know.
crossed there,
like,
what that looks like.
He tells like the facts though, I guess. He explains it pretty well, but it's just weird to see because usually you don't like attack a competitor like that too much. So.
Because even, I would say, it's been a little while now, probably like 8-ish years ago, you used to be able to advertise on Facebook ads with like before and after pictures, and you can't do that anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's crazy.
You haven't able
Why
to
not?
do that. Because a lot of people were faking them.
Yeah,
they were photoshopping and they weren't even real. 2, their community guidelines that they say that it shames people. I don't really get that, but people faking those transformations, that's a big deal.
That's pretty common, I would think.
Especially because I guess you could then take the vertice of shaming and someone else sees something that someone else was able to do. Now, if they were really able to do that, then if you're being ashamed of that, there's a lot of deeper things we need to work on there because that's just how life works. If you can't walk into a room and you're going to be upset or have shame because someone else has progressed more than you, then we have a lot of things that we need to work out foundationally and what's going on in your life and what shaped that. But something that is fake and then you're comparing yourself to something fake, I do get that. There's validity to that, why that shouldn't be allowed. But when they changed that drastically, like people that were selling fitness programs, coaching programs, supplements, fat burners, all that kind of stuff, they got really strict on that. So that's interesting that they would still allow someone to put money behind actually talking specifically about another brand.
I'll show you it after.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. And there's also a way that some of the big budgets behind certain things can kind of get away with some stuff that not necessarily everybody else can do. Now, for the aspiring up and coming entrepreneur, what top 3 pieces of advice, and it can be more than that, whatever you want to do, would you give them? It can even be what not to do. But like, let's say, and if you want to make this easier, instead of it being very ambiguous of who the person is, what their background and what they want to do, if you're sitting in front of, like, you're sitting in that chair and right here is sitting 15 years ago is yourself.
The number one, I think everybody talks about this too, but it's like the actual truth. Like, it just, don't overthink it. Like, actually go for it, you know, because you're always going to overthink it, not feel like you're ready. And if you just go for it, it's a way better option because you can always pivot and switch or, you know, and learn as you go. But all my companies, I didn't feel confident when I was launching them, but I just launched it. And this is how it worked for me. If I said, and a lot of people get stuck, how many people do you talk to that have an idea, right? And they're like, oh, I want to do this. And then it's like 5 years goes by and they don't do anything. So that's the number one thing. And that's what I was super happy that I had that like panic when I started the first company, that I was like, I'm just going to go for it, you know, and I just did it. So that would be the number one thing. Also something you enjoy, you know. I've, like, even the CBD industry, I did really good, but I didn't really like enjoy it that much, like the industry in general. Like it just got like, especially towards the end when I was like selling it and stuff like this. So I would say do something that you really look forward to doing every day and you know a lot about. An industry you know a lot about is just going to help you feel more confident in what you're selling and what you're providing.
My guest last week was a gentleman named Bob Holcomb that he owns a machining shop over here off the runway.
Yeah.
And they have all kinds of crazy machining capabilities, working with heavy metals, small parts for hinges, all kinds of stuff. But he originally was working with high-end Porsches and racing and stuff that he absolutely loved.
Yeah.
But he recognized that there wasn't ever going to be the scalability and the money and the part of it that he loved. And so a question that I asked him was, what changed for you from a motivation standpoint? And I don't like the word motivation in that context of meaning like your energy to go after. What was your reason, your root as to why you'd be willing to stop going after something that you enjoy and be willing to go after something that's more scalable and has more money attached to it? And that's where then you could see the life changes taking place. I want to support a family. I want to be able to, impact other people, employ other people, whatever. So I feel like you hear that advice a lot. Go do something you enjoy. Now, if you can go do something you enjoy and make a great living from it, that's incredible. That's the best of both worlds.
Totally.
And I think there's a lot of people then feel like a failure or like they're not smart enough to figure out how someone else was able to go do what they enjoy and still make money off of it. But you might not enjoy the same things. And what you enjoy might be harder to monetize than what they enjoy. If Bob originally would have enjoyed making hinges for windows, then he would have had the best of both worlds. But he saw an opportunity monetarily, and he also had the ability to pivot and make it happen. So I feel like that's something that needs to be taken into consideration for that young entrepreneur or entrepreneur of any age is if you're going to factor in, I want to do something I enjoy, also be real and honest with yourself of what monetizing that looks like, the reality,
if it's possible.
And then ask yourself the hard question. Do I want to do that because I actually genuinely enjoy doing it, even if I didn't get paid to do it? If I didn't get paid to do it, would I still want to do it? Then you genuinely enjoy it.
Totally. Yeah.
Or am I actually really chasing where I think it could be?
A lot of people that are actually looking to make money being an entrepreneur are probably not always going to enjoy what they do, though, I guess. You're right.
Yeah. And in that case, then where that self-awareness comes in is just like what you said in the beginning, your drive really was you wanted to have nice things.
Yep, exactly.
And so that's where the person needs to be honest with themselves and say, all right, I thought that I kind of convinced or justified to myself that this is the path I wanted to take because I said I enjoyed it, but really what I was after was what I thought it would lead to.
Yeah.
So learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
Don't get a lot of money and time and blood, sweat, and tears down the road before you're able to be honest with yourself about why you chose the path that you chose. I think that, like what you said, you need to go for something. And I agree with you. There's procrastination or paralysis by overanalysis.
Yep, totally.
That is usually a result of procrastination, or leads to even more procrastination. But you need to take that time, at least enough in the beginning, to really be honest with yourself and map out why you want to go after whatever that idea is or that product is, and be able to recognize the difference between an insecurity that could keep you from going after something that's a viable idea or something that's just actually not a good idea.
Yeah.
That's actually not a good product. And being willing to bet on yourself instead of on someone else is very important too.
Very important. You're right.
What do you think it takes to be able to make a smart bet on yourself?
You just have to, I think you just got to be confident in yourself, like I didn't really know I could bet on myself in the beginning, but now I think I can bet on myself. So I'm very confident going into the next thing. So, I'm not sure.
I think that comes from your developed resiliency though.
Yeah.
Your ability to bet on yourself now comes from a different place than it would have before.
Yeah, totally.
I think in the beginning, like you said, it came from a place of desperation.
It did.
So the man who has nothing to lose.
Myself, honestly, yeah.
Yeah. If you have nothing to lose, then why not bet on yourself? But then when you get to the point where you do have something to lose, pushing those chips in and making that bet's a little bit more difficult.
Totally. A lot of people are in a different position than I was. I was still young, like solo in LA, you know, so it was easy for me to just go all in. I was kind of just getting by, you know. A lot of people, like by the time they decide to, they already have families, they have a career, they have kids they got to take care of and stuff. So it's a little bit harder for some people than me. So I, you know, I'm fortunate that I went for it when I actually did when I was younger. Yes, yeah.
I think if I could give myself advice in that scenario, you need to figure out how to develop resiliency, even while you're working maybe for someone else in other life arenas. Now, like you just said, it's also going to be very case specific based upon if you're single, you don't have a family yet, what your financial situation looks like. There's so many factors there. But just from a general sense, if there are other people relying on you, then that's going to be a lot different scenario and equation that you have to take other things into consideration, because you're not just taking a risk for yourself, you're taking a risk for the people that are relying on you.
Save up money for a year and then spend that on a business. If it fails, it's like,
yes,
it's a really bad position for the
if you are in a place where other people are not relying on you, then being able to bet on yourself, you can take a little bit more aggressive of a bet. And I would encourage people to do that, actually.
100%.
Not to the point where you're now in a bunch of credit card debt or your bad credit score and all that kind of stuff. Like, make smart calculated risks, but make risks because most likely you're going to fail at a lot of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And at that point, those failures aren't going to directly affect other people as much. And so your ability to then have humility and develop resiliency through those failures and learning, so that way when you get to the point that the calculated risks you have to take that actually will affect other people are a much safer bet, because you've already developed a resiliency in a period of life that other people weren't relying on you. Yeah. And I think that a lot of us, we have to learn the hard way. Think about the question or the statement when everybody hears, I wish everyone, like Jim Carrey talks about it, I wish everyone could have fame, money, everything the world says is what's going to make you happy, and they could experience it for themselves so they can actually see that it's not, that it's actually empty. Yeah. Why? And I asked another gentleman this, but I want to ask you this, because you've experienced a lot of it firsthand, which a lot of people too. And that's another thing. Like, people can look at Jim Carrey and be like, well, that you have all that. So that's easy for you to say. You can decide if you like it or not. What if I actually really like it? You've experienced a lot of that for yourself. Why is it, do you think, that so many people could hear you say it, someone they know has experienced it, but can tell them and look at them and they actually trust you and say, this isn't the answer? There's a really popular, common interview that Jim Carrey had where he says he wishes, and I said this actually a few weeks ago, but I want to ask you this because you've experienced this firsthand, and a lot of people have not experienced it. And so asking someone that a question that's more so just like subjective and they've never actually experienced it is more so just off of an opinion based instead of experiential based, and that's you. So when he says, I wish everybody could experience fame, fortune, all the money, all the attention, just so they could see that it doesn't actually bring true happiness and fulfillment. If they listen to that and they hear that and they see the emotion and the truthfulness behind him saying that, why is it, do you think, that so many people still ignore it and then chase that, thinking that's going to bring them fulfillment and happiness?
I know for me, you know, I think everybody, it's like, you don't know what you don't know. You think like you want these things, you think that's the actual happiness. Like, if I get that, I'm going to be happy, you know. But as soon as you get those things you strive for, it becomes literally, it becomes normal in like 2 weeks. Everything you can possibly get, once you get it, you're just like used to it. And it doesn't bring that actual true happiness. It gets you, you know, it's nice to have money. You feel security in some ways, and it is nice to have nice things, but it's not like the actual true happiness, which comes from like spending time with your family or my daughter. That's like a completely different level. Or even being in nature and appreciating what God created and stuff like this. This is what, to me, is like actually happiness. The shiny stuff, yeah, it can be nice, but it's almost weird. You hear everybody say it, but it's hard to believe it unless you actually go to it, you know?
Yeah.
You actually get it, so.
Yeah. I don't know if everybody can hear the helicopter in the background right now, but we do film this in a hangar, and the helicopter, Mitch is getting ready to take off right now. So your answer is beautiful. And where I want to go with that is, actually, I was watching an interview on my resistance bike, and David Goggins was actually talking about something that I had never heard him talk about before. And that was, he's like, I'm a multimillionaire and I still don't even own a car. Now, cars aren't his thing, but what he's meaning by that is he doesn't feel like he needs to go buy one just as a symbol of status. Yeah. Right. So what he's saying in that, because for some people, a nice car, meaning like an exotic car, or performance car, or some built out Subaru, whatever that is for each person, because that's something like for me, I love the way they smell. I love the way they sound. I love the way every single thing about it. Like you're the exact same way. I had to also differentiate and let go of the image association with it, and then what actually was just genuine passion for something. But what he's saying in that is, I don't have a passion for that, so I'm not going to go buy it. So that way I portray an image of success by having something that I don't even care about having. And then he took it to a next step, which was really awesome. I hadn't heard him say this. He's like, I take pride in the fact that I'm willing to go without, so that way the people that I love can have what they need.
That's cool. Yeah.
And to take that even another step further, just not even from a money or a materialistic standpoint, from a time standpoint, because our greatest, most valuable asset that any of us have that's completely limited, no matter how much money you have, you can kind of buy some of your time back, but you can't buy more time.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way you can buy it back is you can afford to hire someone else to do something that you don't have to spend the time doing, and you can do what you want with it, or in different versions of that. But how I spend my time now is a huge focus for me, because of what we went back to earlier about the priorities of how I want to spend the time with my daughter, the people I love.
Yeah.
And so for an entrepreneur, I feel like you just need to take a lot of self-inventory as to why you actually want to have your own business, what your main drivers are, what your actual focus and fulfillment will come from. So I just want today people to be able to be honest with themselves, instead of like, we're all really good at lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
To compensate for our insecurities. And it does not do ourselves a service. It only does ourselves a disservice. Lying to ourselves to keep ourselves, it keeps us stuck. Like, I want friends that if I have food in my teeth, will look at me and say, hey buddy, you got food in your teeth. Instead of let me walk around all day with food in my teeth, because they're not in a place where they can tell me the hard truth.
Yeah. Same here, for sure. I like that kind of friend.
Real love is the ability to look at someone and also take the time to get to know them well enough that then you can communicate a hard truth to them in a loving way that they'll receive, but you've got to be willing to do it.
No, 100%.
And so I know that might just seem like it only applies to relationships, but also applies to an entrepreneurial effort, because think about how many guys women that start a business and it becomes their everything. It becomes their child. It is their baby. When I used to work at the financial firm that I was at, one of my jobs was to vet new clients, vet new deals, that whether or not we were going to play kind of like a little investment banking role, whether we were going to invest or bring investors in. And so I would do all the vetting up front. And one of the things that I would see most often that would kill a deal was once they had a great business, finances look good, balance sheet looks good, market cap, everything looked great, structure looked great, no debt. But then we would get to the third, fourth meeting, to almost at the very end where the investor we're bringing in or the strategic partner's gonna like sign and put the money in. A lot of times that entrepreneur was so stuck and fixated on what they needed their baby to be, they were unwilling to make any type of pivots or changes, that strategic partner would kill the deal. That was almost always what killed the deal. They always thought they were right
too.
Yeah. How many times you watch Shark Tank and they're walking in the room and they're standing there in front of billionaires and people have hundreds, if not thousands of companies, and they're giving them advice, and they're the one that hasn't done anything.
It's kind of funny to see.
It is. I mean, anybody that walks into that room and gets like there are some offers that they'll get are just absolute, like, unless it's terrible, if they're going to give you some money and they're going to take a percentage where you still have a good chunk of that thing left, anybody not taking that, to me, is just foolish.
I would take it.
I would walk in and wanted like,
so much value. You know what?
That's kind of a fun question to just.
Some people kind of just sign up. They know that they're not going to do it, but they go there because they know the exposure from being on the show is going to like boost their sales and stuff. So I know some people go in with that.
Sure,
idea, but yeah,
that's true. If you were going in though, and it's not for any of your businesses or anything you're doing, but you just like you had a random product, What would that look like for you? What would that approach look like for you? Because I actually like that question. That's not something I had in my notes. I just thought of that because a lot of the excuses that you hear in the beginning of an entrepreneurial endeavor is I don't have resource, I don't have connections, I don't have the ability to go pitch someone, I'm introvert. What would that look like if you were walking into that Shark Tank? What would your strategy look like? What would you do?
I would go for a deal for sure, just because I know I'm like a visionary, as far as operating and being able to like have the connections, whether it's like manufacturing connections and stuff. They're going to have like the best ones, and they're going to have these skills that I do not acquire yet, or I haven't acquired yet, and I can focus on the visionary more and use their skills. I would definitely go for a deal right away.
A strategic partner like them has the ability to connect dots in a way that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 equals 3 or 5. And so my approach walking in that room would be first and foremost to be as humble and realistic about where I stand compared to where they're sitting for a reason. And so going in there and being able, and if you also have to have the self-awareness that if I'm not even good at pitching this thing, then I need to have someone else come in here that's really good at pitching.
Oh yeah, no, I'd probably have someone pitch for me too.
Exactly. My father, before he passed away, there was a time period where we were working together. And there were certain deals that if it was an oil and gas deal or real estate deal, that was his thing. Like he could just nail those meetings. Like that just was like the back of his hand because he had done it for 40, 50 years. So he would just destroy those meetings. And I decided that in meetings like that, because he was so good at being the point man in it, I didn't need to try to make myself feel heard. I didn't want to, they already discredited me and looked at me as who the hell is the young kid that's the intern? Like, go get me some water. Like, I knew I was up against that, but I'm thankful that I had the humility at that time and even just the wisdom to look at, all right, what gives the deal the best chance? Me puffing my chest up and needing to be heard and making maybe even an ignorant point because some astute business guy sitting there listening to my dad talk about it, and then I just interject something. He knows the difference between something that's like relative and me just feeling like I need to be heard. And so I would just, even if I didn't say anything the whole time, that's okay. If it gives the deal the best foot forward, that's okay. So that's how we need to approach our businesses is having the awareness of like, where are my strengths and weaknesses? Maybe even sit down in front of a whiteboard or a piece of paper and take self-inventory of where I think my strengths and weaknesses are. What can I do to improve my weaknesses? What is actually, like, from a time efficiency standpoint, makes sense for me to spend the time to improve instead of hiring someone to do? And then finding resource. If you have something that is actually a very good, viable product or idea that solves a problem, finding the resource behind it is not your main hurdle. It's almost never the main hurdle because people who have money and are looking to do something with it, when they see something like that, they jump on it. And there's actually a lot of that out there. But I feel like we sell ourselves short. We actually already knock our own legs out from underneath us before we even get started because we weren't willing to be honest with ourselves enough or self-aware enough in the beginning to put the best foot forward, to walk into that room and say, I acknowledge the fact that all of you are much farther ahead in this. That's why you're sitting in that seat, and that's why I'm pitching myself to you. And I already recognize the fact, let's say like market cap on your business industry is a 5X or something, okay? So business multiple. So let's say you're doing $1 million and you got a $5 million valuation. And let's say you even had another partner that's come in at that same $5 million valuation. You should be able to stand there in front of them and look at them and say, this is what our numbers represent, but I also want to take into consideration what you represent. So even though if I have a $5 million valuation right now, I want one of you as a partner, and I'm going to discount it because I want to recognize your value.
100%.
Like, imagine
they got to do work.
If you led with that, because that's usually what they always come back with.
They always come back with that.
You're not recognizing what I've done, what I can do, like this, the connections I have, all these kinds of things. So I feel like the right partner that can see the fact that you already think that way is going to be someone then that's going to jump on that deal because they know they're not having to now overcome and change your way of thinking.
That's a good way to go into it for sure.
Yeah. So I think, and I just threw a lot up right there. I just threw a ton there. But there is no cookie cutter plan to give people to go start a business today. What you said in the beginning was spot on. It needs to solve a problem and it needs to be able to be replicated. It needs to be scalable.
Yeah.
Especially if your goal is to build something big. But that also take inventory of why and what you want to build. It doesn't necessarily have to be that big. If your goal is just to build something that can support your life,
there's just a lot of small businesses that are like that.
You can carve niches out and have something that's actually really sustainable.
There's some businesses that it's just them and their business, and they're like a self-employed, person basically, and they don't have any plans to scale it, but they still do well for themselves, and that's cool too. You know, if that's what you want.
What does legacy mean to you?
I don't know. I've never been so worried about legacy for myself, really.
Okay.
I just it would be nice to leave something that people remember you by. I guess if there was any legacy I'd want to be by, it's maybe, with one of these companies where I create a lot of wealth, giving it back to, communities, with the tech platform, we give 10% back to the nonprofit Pure Hearts Foundation, and
cool.
We want to give water to people in third world nations that can't have basic needs and stuff like this. This would be, to me, like a legacy if you can, help the people in need, more than creating a name for myself and for my family, and that would mean more to me, is just helping other people probably.
I love that answer, because I put you on the spot, and that came from the heart. And what you just said was awesome, especially the first part. That
is the focus. The 10% is owned by the Pure Hearts Foundation, so we want to be giving that back. And there's people that don't even have water and stuff. It's sad to me. So
the first part where you said, though, I've never really worried or thought about my legacy. So when I asked a lot of people this question, a lot of them, almost all of them, have put a lot of thought into that. And then a lot of times afterwards, I'll let them answer, and it's not to correct them or say my answer is better, but I'll say something that I'm working on is that I want my legacy to be that I'm not so worried and focused about what everybody thinks about me. I'm just going to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing and serving others.
That's it.
But what you just said, if I don't even need to focus on what my legacy is going to be, and I'm just going to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing, you're achieving exactly what I just tried to articulate.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. It simplifies it. I do that a lot for myself. I'll come up with some kind of concept that I'm trying to adopt into my way of thinking, my decisions, my lifestyle. And then I have to find ways to bring it down to the dummy version. I have to keep simplifying it so that way I can replicate it more easily. Last question.
Yeah.
If you could have a billboard right here at the 101 Scottsdale Road, highest trafficked area in the valley, or down the 202 and the 10 or something like that, just extremely high traffic place, what would be on that billboard? Your name is signed below it, so everyone knows this is something you put on there. What would you put on there? Oh
gosh, this is on the spot. Let me think here. Is it it's not like a marketing thing, it's more just like words of wisdom?
Anything you want. Anything you want.
This question that makes me feel like I should answer it in some super inspirational way.
Doesn't have to be.
But probably, focus on one of my companies locally. I would have the Sub Shack or whatever, where it's gonna be multiple chains eventually, and it's in Phoenix right now. I would probably promote that, honestly. I'd promote that.
I love your honesty. I love the answer. And you nailed it. So many people, when I ask them that question, they feel like they got to give me this beautiful packaged with a bow on it.
Inspirational thing.
Inspirational, philosophical answer that spreads positivity into the world. What I cannot stand, Jeff, that's just so prevalent today is the people who their actual objective is to make money. Their objective is to build their business, but they're not willing to be honest and direct about it. They want to go this fluff piece route of being the good guy, and they want to help everybody, but that's not actually their real motivation. They actually want to just make the money. Just tell the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that might even be the most important advice that you could give an entrepreneur, is be willing to tell the truth.
Totally.
To yourself, to your potential customers and audience, to the people around you, to everyone that is in your sphere of influence or going to be anywhat impacted by your business and your life. You got to be able to tell the truth.
100%. Yeah.
I like how that just ended. I wasn't expecting that answer, and I give us the ability.
I was trying to think of something
you nailed it.
I was like,
you nailed it.
If it's a pretty simple answer. That's what I would push, because it's local here. So.
Yeah. And I know you haven't done a lot of these, and I really appreciate you being willing to do this with me.
It's my first one, honestly.
Yeah.
So
our conversations that you and I have, dude, you're the real deal.
Appreciate you, man.
You are. You're a good guy. You're very smart.
Thanks for having me
and you're
on, too.
willing to, a lot of guys that experience the success that you've experienced aren't willing to look in the mirror and evaluate where I still need to grow and make changes. And you're good about that. And I see you doing it. I'm watching you do that.
Appreciate that.
And I hope that a lot of other people are willing to do that. Not just even people that haven't made it yet, but other people that actually have achieved versions of the success that you've achieved.
Yeah.
So many of them get so arrogant. We've done it.
Yeah.
You start to think, oh, I'm the man. I've got it figured out. Look what it's produced. But that's a trap.
Yeah.
We're always growing. We're always learning. We always can be a better person. We can always make more impact. We can always, always, always improve in some way. And I feel like once we stop believing that, once we start to drink our own Kool-Aid of thinking we've got it all figured out, is the moment we start going backwards.
Totally.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate
That wraps another episode. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching this. Please like and subscribe. If there's any topics that you want me to talk about specifically with some of my guests, I'm gonna have to pair it with the right person, because that's kind of how I do this. Like I've told you guys, I don't want to put this into a box. I just want to be able to have a conversation with a great person, regardless of what they do for a living, what their story is, what they look like, anything like that. It's just based on the person. That's what I told you. This is going to be very laid back, and we're just going to have a conversation like it's just you and me.
Awesome.
So if there is any specific topics you guys want me to address or talk about, I'll work that into something that makes sense with the right person. But let us know that. Go to pushupsforpoverty.org. Josh Ward, when he was on here, I think I've told you a little bit about this. We're running an initiative right now where we're trying to raise $20,000. Every $10 equivalent to a push-up that we need to do. Okay. So I got a big group of people that were in the process of raising that money to send food over to children in Africa.
Amazing.
They had a big food shortage.
What this stuff is here?
That's actually different. Those are some children for the last few years that I've had the privilege of sponsoring. They're in Tanzania. That's a different area than where the Push-Ups for Poverty organization is involved. And a lot of that, man, is I can own that a lot of periods in my life, a lot of my thought process has been very, very selfish. Self-centered in the sense of what can I accomplish for myself? What can I achieve? What accolades? What can I have? What can I experience? And it hasn't been enough of how can I serve other people.
Yeah.
And
sounds like
man,
the right path now, though, so that's good.
It's always going to be a work in progress, because it's frustrating how easily you can just fall right back into that same exact thought process of how it's all about me. It's my bubble, my pain. And part of it that sneaks up on a lot of people they don't realize is they think of that associated with greed. But another way that happens is when you've gone through a lot of hard things and experienced trauma or pain, you can also get stuck in that same self-fixation bubble, because you're just always focused on that chip on your shoulder of that pain that you went through, what that person did to you or didn't do for you, or what happened to you. Either way, you're still so focused on yourself, you're not able to serve and focus on other people. And I'm trying to be very intentional about that. And I still got a long ways to go.
Awesome.
So thank you guys. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.